Hey, Pastor Jason here, answering questions from our Apostles' Creed class on the first article, God the Father. So one common question that came up after class was to say a little more about God-directed evolution, or we might call it sometimes theistic evolution. And the idea is this, that God is still active in the creative process. He might create the original substance and give it the big bang that gets it started. And then he kind of takes a little bit of a hands-off approach for the most part, but he guides and shapes it a little bit along the way. Obviously, days in the creation account, the 6-day literal creation, now become figurative for very long periods of time so that evolution can take its course and eventually get to the world that we know today. Now, a couple of problems with this theory. First, I think it's better than a godless evolution, but it still is not faithful to the confessions as found in the scriptures. And again, we teach a 6-day literal creation with a 1-day rest after the 6 days of creation. And here are some of the problems I see with theistic evolution or God-directed evolution. It still doesn't account for death being bad. It has to say that death is part of God's original creation. And since the scriptures call creation good, we're essentially saying that death is good because it's part of the creative process. Except we see in the new creation, when Christ returns and recreates all things, death will be completely destroyed. Paul says the last enemy to be destroyed is death when Christ returns. And so it doesn't account for death in a Christian way. It assumes that death is part of the equation. It also doesn't account for natural disasters and calamities in the world in the best way. So in theistic evolution, calamity, disasters are part of the creative process. And the argument is God is using things like a comet crashing into a planet in order to create some basic forms of organisms which eventually evolve into life, volcanic eruptions, whatever. This chaos leads to order and growth. And so it's also saying that natural disasters are part of God's plan for creation. But again, in the scriptures, we see that natural disasters and thorns and thistles and all this stuff are a result of the fall into sin. So we know that death and natural disasters came into the world through sin. But in a theistic evolution model, the natural disasters and death are part of the process from the very beginning. Therefore, the new creation, if it's returning to what was, would also necessitate including those things which scriptures say are not good. Now, we know about the earth and natural disasters because Romans 8:22 says the earth itself is groaning, waiting for its Savior. Even as we await a Savior from heaven, so too the earth is waiting to be recreated and made perfect again without sin. I also think theistic evolution falls short in man's place in the world. In the 6 days of creation account, man is the final thing to be created, mankind, male and female, created in his image. And theistic evolution would suggest that man evolved over time, similar to what typical evolution theory would teach. Man evolved over time, but then God somehow got involved to create the spiritual side of man, to give him a soul. And this actually creates a division between soul and body. And God never intended for there to be a division of soul and body, or spirit and body. In fact, when we die, it is a tearing apart of our person so that the spirit goes to be with Jesus in paradise. It's a good place. We don't actually know a lot about it, but we know it's good and we know we're with the Lord. And our body goes into the ground to decay. But in the great resurrection and the new creation, our body will be resurrected and our spirit reunited with our body so that we can be our whole self again. So theistic evolution would suggest, again, that God would add spirit to this physical man at some point. But I think that creates a division between spirit and body that the scriptures don't support. Now, other related questions to this, we had someone ask about where do creation and evolution coexist peacefully or weave together. And I think we can agree that we do see things like adaptation in species. So you can observe a bird in an environment has adapted to that new environment, and other animals as well. What we might call microevolution or adaptation. And we see that. In fact, the genetic material, in order to adapt, would have been in creatures from the beginning. So even in the case of mankind, right, if you imagine Adam and Eve were made in God's image, and they carried all the DNA for the vast variety of human characteristics and qualities we see today. So ranging in height, skin color, eye color, hair color, all that kind of stuff, all part of that original genetic code that God would have created in Adam and Eve. So we even see this adaptation in the human race, but it's not a macro evolution, which would mean, you know, we change from one species to another. But we do see adaptation in creation, and that's observable with science, and you know, we can prove that. Which again is different than scientism, which says that materialistic exploration, what can be proved, is all that's true, and so we don't believe that. Another question that came up about this was what about dinosaurs and old Earth creation? So when I talk about creating the Earth in 6 days and resting on the seventh, I believe God probably created the world with age. In other words, it wasn't created completely fresh and everything had to kind of come about. So, for example, oil reserves would have been included in the creation of the earth. And God knew that we were going to need that oil at some point. We were going to discover technology in order to refine oil and create energy, which we could use to cure diseases and help people raise the quality of life and general living conditions for humanity. But there's also a way that we can reasonably explain how more oil might come into existence over a long period of time as biomass degrades and turns into oil. Now, we can imagine a scenario where we get good enough with technology and chemical reactions and all these things necessary to speed up that process. But God probably created the world with age, so it had the oil, and new oil could come into existence with enough time, or as we discover better technology, we can rush that process along artificially. Now, dinosaurs, I think dinosaurs were probably on the ark because God saved 2 of every species through Noah and the ark, and probably sometime after leaving the ark, dinosaurs went extinct. So either they were seen as dangerous and mankind hunted them, or maybe they were valuable for some reason and they were hunted to extinction, or possibly other factors contributed to their decline and extinction. But I do believe that they were part of creation, and they were probably on the ark and died off sometime after the flood. Now we see their fossils in the fossil record, and we can learn about them. Probably with the flood reshaping the face of the earth, you get layers and layers of dirt and rock and stone and whatever, and the dinosaur bones are in there. And we do our best to date those things, but they end up being dated a lot older than we might expect for a young, 6,000-year-old or so Earth creation. And this could be a problem with our dating methods, that we're not very exact. Oftentimes there's a range of how old they think it is. With time, we might get better at dating and come to a closer to that 6,000-year-old age of the Earth. And it could also be that God created fossils in the Earth as part of that old Earth creation. Okay, so that's a little bit about theistic evolution, and also how creation and evolution might coexist together, and dinosaurs. Great questions.